But freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on Earth.
Well, the Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz is preparing to release his highly anticipated report on the FBI and the DOJ's handling of the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails. That report expected soon. It comes as President Trump is calling for the department to allow Congress access to documents linked to an FBI informant who spoke to some of his advisors during the 2016 presidential campaign. Joining me right now is House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes. Mr. Chairman, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be with you this
morning. A lot
of
conversation about this informant on a lot of other channels and in all sorts of newspapers. What can you tell us in terms of what went on?
Well, I can tell you that nobody was ever interested in an informant. We asked for specific documents that we still have not received from the Department of Justice. So they continue to leak out things about this informant. And we don't know if there's one informant or more informants because there's so much out there now. It's really getting tough to follow. And all we're asking for is give us the documentation that you used to start this investigation.
And what you've been investigating is what exactly launched an investigation into so-called collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians. Is that right? Yeah.
So remember, we discovered that the dossier was used. So this is the dirt that they dug up that the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democrats used, and then it got to the FBI, and the FBI used it in a FISA. So we're trying to get to the bottom of, what else was used in that FISA, because you have many people in the Department of Justice who are claiming that we're wrong. So if we're wrong, show us the information.
Well, Jim Comey was interviewed by our own Brett Baer recently. You know that. And during that interview, Jim Comey said that there was more than just the dossier. Let's roll that clip. Listen to this, Mr. Chairman.
You called the dossier unverified, salacious. Why did you use that to the FISA court to ask for surveillance for Carter Page? Not only use it, but you led with it. A bulk of that FISA application deals with that dossier. Why?
Yeah, that's not my recollection, Brett. And I don't know that the FISA application has been released. My recollection was it was part of a broader mosaic of facts that were laid before the FISA judge to obtain a FISA warrant.
Broader mosaic of facts, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we're looking for the pieces to Mr. Comey and the FBI's mosaic. So they've continued to say that this didn't happen, even though we've had career prosecutors go and evaluate this. We released a memo that we made public for all of Americans to see that they had used this dirt that was bought and paid for, not verified before a FISA court. And then they continue to claim, no, don't look here. There's no FISA abuse at all. And they're in total denial. So we have a right to get the information. If James Comey and many others and people that are currently at the Department of Justice today continue to say there's nothing to see here. Well, if there's nothing to see here, show us the documents that we're asking for. And they refuse to do it.
And how many documents have you gotten so far from the 1.2 million documents that you've requested?
Well, that's actually a different request related to the Clinton email investigation.
Okay.
We have been very specific. We think there's only a handful of documents left that we'd like to see, but we never get the full story.
The Department of Justice told Fox News they've invited you to the DOJ, and you haven't responded, or are you aware of this invitation to go to the DOJ?
Yeah, so they continued to leak. So we had what I thought was a productive meeting. And then after that meeting, they've done nothing but leak and leak and leak. Now, we don't know exactly who it is over at the Department of Justice or FBI. I'm not pinning any blame on people, but we're not going to go to another meeting where we don't get documents and then the meeting leaks out. And, they were trying, and this should make people very suspicious. They were trying to get Mr. Gowdy and I to go on Friday to the Department of Justice for supposedly another briefing. We said, look, unless we're going to get documents, we found out Thursday night they were not going to provide documents, so therefore we're not going to go. Now, if you look what happened on Friday night, probably the mother of all leaks of all time to two major newspapers that came out late Friday night.
Yeah, that's
now,
what
had Mr. Gowdy and I went to that meeting, you can bet they would have tried to pin that on us.
That's what I want to ask you about. Stay with us. Devin Nunes, we'll be right back with more on that.
The best part about being a bath fitter installer.
Welcome back. We are back with this exclusive interview with House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes. And Mr. Chairman, a moment ago, before we went to break, you said it was the mother of all leaks conducted by the Department of Justice. What were you referring to?
Well, there were two mainstream media outlets on Friday night that had lots and lots and lots of details. If any of those details are correct. So remember, we don't have any documents. We can't confirm whether there's an informant or not an informant because we've never been told nor given documents. And in fact, we've never even asked for the name of any informants or any sources whatsoever. So if any of that is true, if they ran a spy ring or an informant ring and they were paying people within the Trump campaign, if any of that is true, that is an absolute red line. There is not an honest person in this country who can believe that taxpayer dollars going to fund this ring and operate like this, like what's said in the New York Times, I think it would have quite a bit of detail on it. If any of that is true, this is a red line in this country. You can't do this to political campaigns. But I mean, this was done. I mean, according to them, this was done in the spring. I mean, before the counterintelligence investigation was even open. If that's true, we need to know about it.
So, well, the New York Times reports and the Washington Post that somebody was paid. Somebody was paid, and they were interacting with the Trump campaign. You want to call it spying? Fine. But somebody was paid. Isn't that right? That's what the New York Times says.
If they paid someone, it's an absolute red line, and this is over with. I mean, I don't know how to say this. I mean, there is no possible way that we should be allowing, even if it was legal, we should never allow this in this country. Congress should not allow for anything like this to ever occur again to any political campaign if it in fact happened, which is why I'll say again, all they got to do is provide us the documentation. If they didn't do anything like that, provide us a document so we can verify it.
Well, when you say this is over, what do you mean this is over? I mean, we have criminal referrals from the Inspector General
what I'm saying is it's over. And when I say it's over, meaning that this whole thing is a scam. I mean, that there's real FISA abuse here. If there is real, I mean, the real FISA abuse, I just can't imagine if what's in these stories is true. How can any American stand for this? And look, we're a separate branch of government. We set up these capabilities. We have a responsibility to oversee these capabilities. And I'll tell you, there is not an honest person in this country that thinks it's okay if sources, informants, whatever you want to call them, go around and start passing out money all over the globe to do what? To secretly put yourself into a presidential campaign. That's not acceptable in this country.
How far up the line does this go? We know that Loretta Lynch and Sally Yates were briefed on the Trump campaign in 2016, in the spring of 2016. We know from Peter Strzok texts that he said, and I quote, President Obama wants to know everything we're doing on this. And we know that Peter Strzok told Lisa Page we need an insurance policy should Donald Trump win the presidency. So who was calling the shots here?
Well, look, there's a lot of abuse here. And so they were briefed in the spring. So we know that the FBI briefed the highest levels of the Obama administration in the spring of 2016. Shortly after that, you have Mr. Steele that gets going. He's being paid by the Clinton campaign secretly. He's also meeting with the FBI. He's digging up what ends up being totally phony dirt, by the way, who he claims got it from Russians. And so I don't know how clearly I can possibly say this. If anybody's looking for collusion, all they have to do between the Russians and a political party, all they have to do is figure out if, in fact, Christopher Steele talked to Russians, because there you have your collusion. They took information from Russians and they used it against the president, President Trump.
And the Democrats
and then they started, and the Democrats paid for it all.
Yeah.
And this is so I don't even know what they're investigating at this point.
So wouldn't Robert Mueller be looking at then? I mean, Robert Mueller's investigation has turned one. It is 1 year old this last week. Would he have looked at collusion between Hillary Clinton and the Russians then, or is that not his mandate?
I doubt it, because, I mean, they've never even looked into, there's all this talk about leaks. What about the leak of General Flynn's phone call with the Russian ambassador? What about that leak? Why don't we start there with leaks? Yeah,
well, that we know is a felony. Well, real quick, the IG report is forthcoming. What are you expecting from that IG report? Will justice be served?
You know, I don't have any idea. This is the Clinton email investigation. I have not met with Mr. Horowitz. I don't even know exactly what he's looking at other than what I've read in the press. But I can tell you the cast of characters that are involved in that investigation are the same cast of characters that we are investigating at the House Intelligence Committee as we look into FISA abuse and counterintelligence operations.
And you're also investigating the State Department. Anything new there?
Yeah, so, well, that's the interesting thing about the State Department is we're trying to figure out how did this information make it over from London to the FBI? We've never been able to put that together because we were told many times, and this was all over, it was leaked, oh, these were trusted Five Eyes sources and, intelligence products. Well, as you know, we never found any intelligence products as it relates to our Five Eyes partners sending us information. So how did it get through? Well, we thank the State Department because we have people talking about this, former State Department officials talking about this. So if that indeed happened, now we have something that's totally irregular. So now you're taking information from the State Department, you're opening up a counterintelligence investigation into a political campaign. That is, to say the least, it's irregular.
And we should point out that on this program, you said in the past that Sidney Blumenthal and Mr. Scherer, Cody Scherer, were actually funneling information to the State Department.
Right. You kind of have you kind of have all kinds of people, right? You've got Christopher Steele working for the Democrats in the Hillary Clinton campaign. You've got Blumenthal and others who are tied and affiliated with the Clinton operation. And then on the other side, you have the FBI. They're all about at the same time running investigations into Carter Page. I mean, it's very odd.
You make a lot of good points, Mr. Chairman. Real quick before you go, you are also investigating China. This is an important storyline for us this morning as the president has come to some kind of an agreement where the Chinese will buy more goods. What my concern is he going to take the national security part of this off the table? The Chinese do not want to deal with this 301 part of the Trade Act where the U.S. can stop China from certain practices because of national security issues. What are you investigating China over?
So we have a really large investigation going into and study, I guess I should say, into what are China's strategic goals globally. So this week we had our first hearing. We had great witnesses. If people want to go to it, they can review our testimony that was given before the House. It was all made public.
Right.
Talking about military strategy that the Chinese have all over the globe. It's very, very interesting, and it's an important topic. So like always, the president's got to take China on. They have to be dealt with. I commend him for that. But we have to be careful that we, at the same time, don't do anything to hurt the global economy.
Mr. Chairman, good to see you this morning. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Chairman Devin Nunes, we'll be right back.